Security officers of Reddit. So, where are the hidden cameras? Really? What have you seen on those backroom monitors you will never forget? Whether it's sexy, violent, scary, or maybe even paranormal. Working grad nights at Disneyland, I always loved working Pirates of the Caribbean. About an hour before the kids headed back to the buses, 3 AM ish, things got really quiet and very few people came through the rides. The ones that did were always couples looking for someplace to make out. Being in the dispatch booth was always great at that point because you had full view of all of the cameras throughout the ride. I saw men a BJ performed. Depending on who was working at unload, I would let them know when it was happening and he would give them a wink or shake his finger at them to let them know, we know. My high school was supposedly banned from grad night at Disneyland for a few years after my class went. Didn't matter to us since we didn't go there anymore. The rumor was that someone got off the boats to drink with the pirates and got busted in about 3 seconds. Not on the cameras, but I have worked nights in 2 high-rises that are right next to high-end hotels. As it turns out, there are a lot of people who like to have sex with the blinds open because they think our offices are completely vacant at night. They always forget about the security guard that has to do round on every floor every other hour. My wife and I do that because we hope your offices aren't vacant. Not a camera in this case. When I was 17, I was working security in a 12-story building in Dallas. It was a full secure building and my job was to take the elevator to the top and walk down over and over, randomly going into offices and checking them. It was a big building, multi-use with dozens of companies inside. One night around 3 AM, where I was pretty much the only person in the building, I was wandering around in an office I hadn't been in much and went into a corner room just to look around. Mostly I was intending to look out the windows and check the parking lot. I rarely bothered turning on lights, just randomly lit things up with my flashlight. I watched the parking lot for a moment, then turned to wander out. The office closet had no doorknob, and looking right at me through the hole was an eye. After half my hair fell out, and my heart started to slow down, I realized the sob who owned that office had put a poster on the other side of that door with an eye lined up with that hole. I'm still mad at him. Holy crap, that is genius. I must do this to one of my children. First security site I worked at was a beef plant, and while most cameras just showed people cutting beef, occasionally you'd see the off pair go off to the non-traffic areas to do the dirty. That's where I learned a lot of homosexuals work at beef plants. At Target we had a report of someone following people around the parking lot in his car. Swung the outside camera to get to look at his face to call the police. Zoom. Enhance. That's a penis. He was masturbating while following young girls in the lot. I worked graveyard shift security in the psych ward of a hospital last summer. The most memorable thing I can think of was when a patient threw the television across the room after pacing in front of it for over half an hour. When I rewound the tape, I noticed that he had been watching a Magic Bullet infomercial. That's actually a pretty sane reaction if you ask me. My job title was friction manager when I worked at a strip club. Basically, my job was to sit in a booth located in the friction room and watch 2 large screens that showed an image of each private dance room. I kept tally of the number of dances each girl performed and charged them accordingly. I also kept an eye out for overly aggressive customers and called security when needed. I was also responsible for making sure none of the girls were doing anything illegal in those rooms. On my second day I had to fire a girl for allowing her butthole to be fingered. I saw the guy that would fly in once a week to pay a girl $2,000 to kick him in the nuts for an hour. I saw countless cat fights. I saw countless guys whip out their dongs and CM on the dancer. I saw so many titties. The worst thing though was the mother-daughter team we had. Guys would find out and have them both give dances together. The daughter ended up overdosing on H and dying. Friction manager is a fantastic title. When I was a regular security officer at my first site, I would work the night shift. My job was to basically walk the building's interior and exterior and watch the CCTVs. At night, the cameras sometimes don't show perfect images. After I am done with an external round at 3 AM, I go inside and look at one of the cameras that cover one especially dark corner of the building. Standing there, doing absolutely nothing but staring at the camera, is a lone man. I cannot distinguish his features because of the camera's low quality. This man is just standing there staring at the camera, not moving an inch. He wasn't doing anything mischievous, so I couldn't call the police just yet. So I killed some time and reviewed the recorded footage to see when he got there. Sure as crap, he popped out of the bushes right after I'm seen walking by from my recent external round. He seems to follow me a little bit, but when I cut out of view he stops and stares at the camera until I come back into the control room. When I stop the DVR, I look back at the camera and he is gone. I did not go back outside until sunrise. For your information, if you're an attractive woman who works in an office building with card reader access and a security staff, there's a good chance the male guards know you by name and may have a nickname for you. As far as things I've seen, I'm a guard at an office building. I've seen 2 separate women urinate on the property. One was obviously drunk and tried to conceal herself in some bushes in the middle of the night. The other woman pulled up to our parking garage entrance, got out of her car and, in full view of our security camera, pee for about 90 seconds in broad daylight. I've also seen a peeping Tom masturbating outside a window in some condos next to my building. Police were called and he was arrested. The woman he was watching was older, I believe, and just doing laundry. I've lost count of the people I've recorded parked on the property having sex in a car. This includes an on-duty cop who would park and then be joined by a woman for an hour. I worked at a community college AV department for a while. I know. The security office hired me to make, and then run, a bunch of hidden camera setups. There was an epidemic of theft on campus, and security suspected their own people, so they went to another department for help. I threw together a couple simple setups, cams in VHS cases, clocks, PC speakers, etc. One of the first places they had me set things up was in the office of the president of the college. They were complaining of things being moved, but not stolen. There were other places that needed the gear more, but the priest gets what she wants. First day after having the rig set up, I'm reviewing the tape from the night before. Around midnight the light in the office comes on. I know it's not cleaning. They were there hours earlier. It ended up being several of the president's office staff, naked, in a gangbang. When it came time to report the first week's results, I gave security a vid file of static, technical difficulties, left a note on the desk of one of the pre's office employees. Anonymous note, of course, suggesting that they stop. I included a still frame shot of their escapades. A week later several of the staff quit, which was not my intention. I felt kinda bad about the whole thing, and handed over the task to someone else. I dunno, it was weird. Shrug. I actually think you handled that pretty well. I've seen a psych patient knock a nurse out cold. I've seen, more than once, couples trying to get a little slap and tickle on. I've seen elderly people lost in places they shouldn't have been able to get to. I've seen people blatantly drinking hard alcohol and smoking cigarettes in the building. I had a boss who was a creepy pervert and liked to zoom in on the cute female pharmacy techs. No shame. He did this during meetings and in front of everyone. He got fired for misconduct over something else. No surprise there. Most of our cameras aren't hidden, just sitting in cases that protect them. Because they aren't obviously cameras, just a white box with a tinted glass panel. People don't seem to register that they're on camera and do all kinds of embarrassing crap in front of them. Slap and tickle equals Brit slang for bumpin' uglies. I worked as a manager at a tobacco store about 10 years ago. One customer was a semi-homeless man who'd come in and buy a couple packs of cigs. It was winter, and being one of the few smoke-friendly places, I had a small table and chair set up. To be honest, it was to encourage cigar smoking, not cigarette smoking, since cigars were much more profitable. He was a pretty chill guy, but after a week or so of his patronage, he was sitting and having a smoke when another customer came in. I can't remember the specifics, but he began to insult and belittle the customer, so I had to eventually kick him out of the store. He was clearly upset, but I really didn't think much of it. About 2 weeks later he comes in and doesn't say a word. I'm behind the counter, and he's just standing a few feet away. For me that gets my attention. After a long minute and "Can I help you?" he buys a single pack of Reds, says nothing and walks out. I was suspicious, so I reviewed the CCTV and the camera that shows the counter art from the side. In the hand I couldn't see he was holding a revolver. Cops came and took the tape and a statement, but I doubt anything came of it. I quit shortly after. The pay sucked. Crap, that's scary. At least he didn't go through with it. Unless you're a terrible person in real life, but I'm not going to immediately make that leap. I worked at a large retail establishment for many a year, and the highlight reel of the security team was awesome. Weirdest thing was two bros shopping in electronics together, not looking particularly suspicious. I mean, these were your typical no homo type dudes. Khaki cargo shorts, backwards hats, Abercrombie shirts. This was 2008ish. One perched down to look at something on the bottom shelf and the other one came up, put his hand on the crouching guy's shoulder, and fully puts his hand down the back of the guy's pants. Bro number 1 is unfazed. Bro number 2 steps back and inhales deeply of the backdoor essence of bro number 1. They don't buy anything and then leave nonchalantly. TL. DR. Dude abreast come to store, dipstick each other. Perhaps they were shoplifting, but in such a way that you don't notice him putting the item down his pants, because you're too busy wondering what exactly the guy is doing. This was about March time. I was guarding a wind farm construction site in a place called Coldham. It's in England and the fens. My site was in the middle of a bunch of fields. I like to sit in my car during my night shifts as the poor excuse for a cabin they gave us smelled of urine and the heating would cut out the power. So I was in my car with my laptop watching something or other, and I see a quick dash to my left, and without getting out, because frick getting raped on minimum wage, am I right? I look out the window, and because it was night I could see frick also. I flick on my main beams, and what did I see? Two of the biggest fricking hares going at it right in front of my car. Not so spectacular, I hear you say? Well, ever heard the expression "you look like a rabbit caught in headlights"? It refers to rabbits, hares, deers and other woodland critters being frozen in place when hit with a sudden beam of light. Were the two hares frozen in place? Yes they were, and this made it much easier for the fox hiding just behind the cabin to run out and snatch the one on top. That's right, people. Not only did I cockblock a hare mid-hump, but I also got the little faker killed, and all I could do was bring up my brother and tell him of the hare's tale of woe. Oh god, I don't know if that's funny or tragic. We had one hidden in the cash counting room. The cash supervisor was stealing and hiding the money in her fat rolls. We got it on camera and had her come to the office. She had to lift up her shirt and pull all the money out of her rolls. I used to work security at a amusement park before I got into M's. The craziest thing I ever saw was someone being stabbed while I watched from the video room. I of course called out for my other officers that were patrolling to get their code 3 and called the police. From what we gathered after the incident was it was a gang retaliation. I honestly expect to hear more violence occurring on camera than sexy times. That must be a terrible feeling to see that and not be able to intervene. Just helplessly watching someone get killed on camera. In most retail stores there are maybe 2 people watching the floor. I worked for a large department store and they had 1 person watching the cameras and 1 person walking the floor in plain clothes. They mostly rely on tip-offs from regular employees for suspicious people. Cameras are mostly only useful after they detain someone and need to go back and gather evidence. Just because you see a lot of cameras in a store doesn't mean you're being watched. Truly hidden cameras don't work as a deterrent for shoplifting, so they are rarely used outside of watching registers and cash drop points for internal theft. When I was in the army in 1990 and wasn't allowed to go to the desert since they didn't trust me with live ammo after my wife died, they put me on guard duty walking around at night watching the ammo depot at the base I was at. This was a base for an armor battalion, so there were huge bunkers buried underground with tank ammo in them. I got dropped off at sunset and was handed a walkie-talkie and an axe handle. Not a handgun or an M16 like I'd been trained to use, but a fricking stick. All night long I walked around in circles inside this 10 feet tall fenced in area picking up rocks and hitting them with my stick. Bored as frick. At about 5:30 am, I saw someone coming out of the tree line on the other side of the fence and noticed that he had a weapon on his shoulder. I panicked and started to call it into my captain when I realized he wasn't trying to threaten me in any way. He was in camouflage, not military style, but the kind you wear going hunting. He'd been there all night long waiting for some wild boar that he'd heard come around all the time. He said he had me in his sights for half the night. He had a jar of apple moonshine and offered me a few swigs, which I happily took to calm my nerves after hearing that he could have taken me down at any time. TLDR, me and my axe handle, saving the world from terrorists. One time this incoherent drunk dude stumbled onto the deck of the place I was working at overnight. I was the only one in the building. He passed out in the deck chair. I let him be for a few hours and checked on him every now and then. The sun started to rise, and people were about to show up for the morning shift, so I stood in the doorway and poked him with a mop handle a few times, ready to scurry back inside and lock the door if he was violent. He swatted it away a few times, lurched up and whipped out his dong and proceeded to take a leak right on the deck like I wasn't even there. I stood there stammering like the dude no man, not on the deck, while he mumbled profanities and then he stumbled off into the sunrise. I worked for security when I was in college. Girl I had been seeing came and visited me at my office since I was working a 2400 or her shift. She was swinging by to say goodbye because it was the end of the semester and she was moving back home for the summer. We kissed, said our goodbyes, etc. and she left. Well, not 2 minutes after leaving she shows up at the entrance to one of the dorms that my office covers. Guy comes to the door, they make out briefly, then disappear inside. She didn't leave before the end of my shift. Felt bad, man. Ouch, she maybe wasn't the brightest bulb, though. My time to shine. Used to work mall security, caught many people fricking in the parking lot on cam, including mall tenant employees that I see all the time. Saw a skunk with a yogurt cup over its head run in circles for 5 hours during an overnight. Saw a cat running around, but with the framer it looked as if the cat's legs never moved and it was gliding a Benny hill. Saw a 2,000-pound snowgate lift up off the peg and fall over with nobody around. Saw a few security guards fall off segways. Saw a woman tumble down a flight of stairs, turn 90 degrees left, continue tumbling on flat ground, turn 90 degrees right and tumble down another flight of stairs. Saw a car catch fire seemingly spontaneously. Saw myself having fun doing donut in my car, nailing a curb and catching air. Oh yeah, and I saw a woman squirt diarrhea on her boyfriend's windshield. And as far as hidden cameras, they are purposely visible to deter crime. Covert cameras could literally be everything. It's actually quite scary what the inner workings of a CCTV camera can be put into. I'm not talking about something small or large, I'm talking literally anything could be used as a covert camera. Working in CCTV as I do, it's not as exciting unfortunately as you'd like to think. We see more wildlife and plastic bags blowing in the breeze than we do boobs. I'm not the guy who watches the cameras, but my company has people who watch us. Security, and the site we work, a water treatment plant. Well, it's boring as crap. So one night I thought I'd make some lols and starting dancing in front of the cameras from one pane to the other, like from one side of the camera's view to the other. Well, the guys behind the camera thought it was funny as crap. I'm white and can't dance for the life of me, so for even more lols from the camera guys, I show up the next day to a video of my dancing across a million cameras with some ridiculous music on. That was sent to everyone's email that worked at the plant. I have the nickname Dances with Wolves because of the coyotes out here. No idea why they made that connection. When I was a security guard at an art museum, I once witnessed a young, well-dressed man do something that still haunts my dreams. He stood alone in a gallery, hand on shin, studying a very large, texture painting for quite some time. This is normal. People do that. What people do not do is calmly remove their hat and rub the top of their head against the artwork, which he did. He then replaced his hat and calmly strolled out of the gallery. I've never been more confused in my life. I do computer tech support. I do simple stuff. can't print, I'm your guy. One day a middle-aged married gent comes up to me and tells me that he met a girl online and promised he'd help her set up a sex site. But he doesn't know the first thing about computers. I'm surprised that he was able to get into a chat room. I quickly declined. I told him I knew nothing about web programming. True, and good luck with his endeavor. Not heartfelt. Time goes by and one day I find myself in the security office. The security guy is old as the hills, and I'm setting up the laptop of his new, fresh out of college, sidekick. I see them watching the monitor and there's the P guy. He's in the office right next door. They are sharing a wall. I see him get up and lock his door, sit down at the PC and up pops P. The old security guy says to the kid, "Go ask to borrow a pencil." He goes over and knocks on the door. The dude shuts down his PC, including turning off the monitor, grabs everything on the printer and throws it in the trash, and comes to the door. "Got a pencil?" Sure, gives security kid a pencil. The kid comes back and we watch the guy lock the door, but the PC monitor is back on, logs in, and P. Old dude says to kid, "Now go borrow a sharpener." Equals DI was dying. Again, the PC is downed, monitor turned off, no idea why, door unlocked, etc. He was escorted off the property about a week later. A managers had flagged corporately for P, and the IT managers were sure there was no way that manager was that dumb. They traced the IP addy to the workstation next to security, and that manager would never have been in that office, hence the surveillance. This was 96 and we weren't very security conscious back then. When a management person got their proxy password, it defaulted to the username. So as long as you had someone's email address and they had never changed the PW, you could get online with it. After the fact I found out he had left pictures in the trash which people had found and complained about, and that security had him on video waxing the carrots in his office. He had worked at the company for 25 years and was escorted off the property having just screwed himself out of his pension. D equals I can't even imagine what he told his wife. It also turned out that he was doing this from work so his wife wouldn't find out. Oops, I really wish I would have gone into security instead of PC support. I tell myself that it's silly, but I still cover my boobs with my hands and change bras as fast as possible when trying on bras in fitting rooms. There's a way to check if it's a two-way mirror. Supposedly, you put your fingernail up to the mirror and as long as there's a small gap between your nail and the reflection, you're good. I still check every time. I work security for a relatively large bank with a lot of offices in Europe. I can log on a look at any camera we have on any of our branches or ATMs or deposit boxes. One time we had an alarm at one of our branch offices. There is nothing to be seen on camera at the site. However, I dispatch a security guard to check this and reset the alarm or find out if it's a malfunction, etc. The guard arrives and finds nothing unusual on the site. Being a bit lazy, I guess he doesn't even write down the alarm detector number. He just confirms nothing unusual and resets it. Then the guard leaves and 10 minutes after that we get another alarm, this time from one of the safes at the place. I check the video again and notices light on in the safe room. Goes on automatically, and there's bits of plaster on the floor. So we contact the police. They go there and with the security guard so he can lock them in. I then check the video and see that there has been a burglar. He's gone in through the roof, using skimmask and such stuff. He had set off the first alarm too, sprayed the IR detector with paint, and then he sat on the roof probably and waited for the security to reset the alarm. His mistake though was to touch the safes. As soon as he tripped that alarm he went out of his hole in the roof and get out of Dodge. He was not caught. Interesting stuff. A lot more interesting than credit card fraud and cash trapping yawn. I have also seen W give a guy a handy at the entrance to one of our garages. One W standing out in the front blocking the view from passers-by and one doing the work. Seen drug deals and drug addicts setting and cooking their H at the same spot too. We usually don't bother drug addicts getting their fix during the night, they do their thing and move on. The drug dealing was reported though. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.